Sister Aurelia Archambault was born in San Francisco of a Canadian father and a Pennsylvanian mother. Her early childhood was spent on Sweetwater River, Wyoming, where her parents conducted an Indian trading center. She often recalled later how the traders filled her little apron with gold nuggets, which she used as toys. Indian troubles at the post caused the family to move back east, where her education took place at Florissant, Missouri. She followed the example of her teachers and entered the Loretto Society at the age of 15. She taught in several Loretto academies, but chiefly at her alma mater in Florissant. In 1930, however, she retired to Loretto Heights, where she had been for a short time in the late 1890s. Afflicted by almost total deafness, she very cheerfully spent the last years of her life reading and praying. She died of a stroke following a broken hip. Sister Nix Blinko was a classical scholar and teacher and a pioneer in the Confraternity of Christian Doctrine, a thriving organization in the 1940s and 50s. She was born in rural Kentucky, the daughter of two prominent Kentucky families, Dr. A.G. Blinko and his wife, Jane Spalding. She graduated from nearby Loretto Academy in 1911 and in the fall followed her two older sisters in joining the Loretto Sisterhood. She had a long teaching career coupled with higher graduate studies, which prepared her for the faculties at both Webster and the Heights colleges. She died in Denver after a short bout with cancer on September 8, 1961. Her sisters in religion were Sister Aloysia Marie and Ricarda. Sister Vera Bloom died while she was principal at St. Mary's Academy Elementary Department in a freak auto accident at the entrance of the school on University Boulevard, February 7, 1968. She was a native of Sterling, Illinois, where she was educated at St. Mary's grade and high schools, which were conducted by the Sisters of Loretto, and in a 2-year course at Northern Illinois Teachers College. After teaching for 2 years, she joined the Sisters of Loretto and taught in several of their Midwest schools. She was named St. Louis Archdiocesan Supervisor of Elementary Schools in 1949, a post she successfully held for 10 years. In 1959, she went to St. Mary's, Denver, where she was appointed principal in 1964. Mother Pancratia Bonfis is rightfully called the founder of Loretto Heights. She not only chose the site on Sheridan Hill, but also was responsible for the erection of the first 2 major campus buildings and the initiator of its educational efforts. She bore a prominent surname, Bonfis, notable both in St. Louis, where her father Francis was an eminent physician, and in Denver, where her cousin Frederick was the founding editor of the Denver Post. She was educated at Loretto Academy in Florissant, a suburb of St. Louis, where she was converted to Catholicism. In her early teens, she entered the Loretto Novitiate in Kentucky. In 1868, she, with Sister Mary DeSales-Heinz, was sent to augment the faculty of the new St. Mary's in Denver. They traveled via the Union Pacific Railroad to Cheyenne, Wyoming, its far western terminus at that date, and thence by stagecoach to their destination. The stage was welcomed to Denver by the town mayor and the Army Band. In 1891, when Loretto Heights was opened, she headed the group of 20 sisters who made the foundation on November 2nd. Except for several brief interludes, she spent most of her life as directress of St. Mary's or the Heights. Noted as a woman of deep religious convictions, of outstanding personality, and decisive leadership, she was loved both within and without the community. Upon her death, which occurred October 15, 1915, after a very brief illness, she was eulogized far and wide. Fittingly, her grave is in the center of the cemetery plot. In 1929, when a new building was added to the campus, it was appropriately named Pancratia Hall in her honor. Sister Mary Martin Camp was a woman of unusual artistic ability. She was born in Louisville, Kentucky, August 31, 1844. She went to school at Cedar Grove, where she was converted to Catholicism and entered the Loretto Novitiate soon after. A gifted artist herself, she attempted to develop the same talent in both sisters and students in many Loretto academies in the Midwest and West. When she retired from teaching because of the infirmities of old age, she chose Loretto Heights as her place of residence. She returned to the Heights in 1917, where she had a small studio on the 5th floor and continued to paint canvases and china until her last days in 1924. Sister Edwina Casey was one of a trio of blood sisters who became Sisters of Loretto. They were natives of Denver and daughters of Irish-born Martin Casey and Catherine Ryan. Shortly after her birth on September 18, 1897, she was baptized Margaret. Following 9 years of education at St. Mary's Academy, she entered the Loretto Novitiate. Her first teaching assignment was at Florence, but she soon moved to Loretto schools in the West. While on the staff at Sacred Heart School Pueblo, she died during a visit at Loretto Heights College on August 8, 1931, and was buried in the campus cemetery. Sister Menadora Casey, Edwina's older sister Catherine, was one of the first 2 graduates of the new Loretto Heights Academy. She was born October 1, 1874. She entered the Loretto Order at the age of 20 and made her first vows in 1895. After a long and successful teaching career on both the elementary and high school levels, she retired at St. Mary's, Denver. She died June 30, 1947, and was buried at the Heights. The third Casey girl, Josephine, followed in her older sister's footsteps and entered Loretto in 1905, receiving the name Celestine. After earning her master's degree, she was assigned to Loretto Heights College in 1926. There, she played a prominent role in its journalism department and co-authored with Sister Edmund Fern the first full-length history of Loretto Heights College, Loretto in the Rockies. She was also the curator of the campus cemetery for many years, which she lovingly and expertly managed before she retired to spend her last days at Loretto Mother House. Sister Udocia Chacon was born in Santa Fe, December 6, 1843, and named Francesca by her parents, Albino and Refugio Chacon. She spent most of her religious life in domestic duties at Loretto Heights College, where she died a holy death on December 29, 1929, at the age of 87. Sister Claire Clayton was born in Holy Cross, Kentucky on February 15, 1875. As a child, she moved to Lebanon, Kentucky, where she was educated by the Sisters of Loretto, whom she joined at the age of 17. Her first assignment was to the Visitation School in St. Louis, one of the many parochial schools conducted by the Sisters of Loretto in that city. Sister Claire spent her teaching career of over 50 years in the Midwest. She died, however, and was buried in Denver, where she had gone for a vacation in the summer of 1952. Her death occurred July 31, 1952, after a brief illness. Mother Marie Lourdes Convoy was a native of Rock Falls, Illinois, and died while serving as the first superior of the Denver province of the Sisters of Loretto. Her death occurred unexpectedly on February 23, 1959, from an embolism following an operation at St. Joseph's Hospital in Denver. Known from baptism as Florence Convoy, she graduated from Mount St. Joseph College in Dubuque before her entrance into the Loretto congregation. She taught Latin and mathematics in several Loretto high schools and was principal of Pancratia Hall from 1936 to 1941, when it was closed to provide space for the expanding college. Because of her experience and other valuable traits, she was chosen as one of the 3 Loretto provincials when the new government structure was set up in 1952. Sister Florence Corrigan was born in South Omaha, Nebraska. Orphaned in infancy, she was reared by an aunt and uncle who sent her to Loretto at Florissant to be educated. She entered Loretto in 1913, becoming a teacher of Latin, French, and English at the high school level. After teaching at Pueblo and El Paso, she went to St. Mary's High School in Colorado Springs in 1926. She died of double pneumonia during her school year 1931-32 at Glockner Hospital on April 24th. After the Requiem Mass at Colorado Springs, her remains were brought to the Heights for burial. She was described in her obituary as having a rare influence over her pupils and as possessing a brilliant mind in a frail body held together by a winsome personality. Sister Stefana Courtney was born in County Kerry, Ireland in 1841 to John and Mary Courtney. When and how she came to America is no longer known. She entered Loretto in 1859 and taught in Cape Girardeau, Missouri and Pueblo, Colorado before coming to Loretto Heights in 1896. There, she taught until her death on September 8, 1918. Sister Teresa Joseph Cummings was born and educated in Ireland. At the age of 18, she came with her family to America, and soon after she entered the Sisters of Loretto. Her longest assignment was at Loretto Heights, where she was engaged in domestic work of various kinds. She died at the Heights on May 11, 1924. Her older sister, Catherine, also was a Sister of Loretto, known as Sister Severina. Sister Lavial Daly was born of Irish parents in Toronto, Canada, April 6, 1854. After attending schools in Canada and Ohio, she finished her education at Loretto, Kentucky. At 16, she entered the Loretto community. She was teaching at Loretto Heights during the hectic years of the Silver Panic and its aftermath. Mother Praxedes Carty, the superior of the Heights during that time, was frantic over the threatening closure by the Northwestern Life Insurance Company, which held the mortgage on the new building. She chose Sister Lavial to accompany her to the board of directors meeting in Milwaukee, where she appeared unannounced and pleaded a delay in their action. She won their confidence and their vote. In 1896, Sister Lavial left the Heights to teach music in the Missouri schools, but she returned there in 1926. She died from pneumonia 11 years later on November 10, 1935. She was described by her contemporaries as being remarkable for her courteous manner and her power of concentration. She is famous for saying, "If you take the building, you must take the sisters." Sister Pascal Doyle was born August 6, 1858, of Irish parents John and Lizzie O'Callahan Doyle in Fairfield, Kentucky. After studies in the public schools, she attended nearby Loretto Academy for 1 year and entered the novitiate in 1874. After teaching music for almost 10 years at Bethlehem Academy, Kentucky, she was sent to St. Mary's, Denver, spending most of the next 2 decades of her life there or at Loretto Heights. In 1902 to 1903, she was named Directress of Our Lady of Light Academy in Santa Fe, where she became ill and returned to Denver for treatment of an illness which proved to be terminal. She died at St. Mary's Academy December 9, 1903. Sister Rita Therese Dubour was born in southern Colorado in Antonito and was educated there in the public schools. After graduating from high school, she taught 2 years before entering the Sisters of Loretto in 1929. As a sister, she taught the immediate grades chiefly in Loretto schools in New Mexico until 1964, when she was added to the faculty of St. Philomena's School in Denver. In the spring of 1969, she was forced to retire to Loretto Center, Littleton, because of cancer, which brought about her death on October 22, 1969. She was the last person to be buried in the campus cemetery. Sister Dominic Early was born February 15, 1867, to Irish immigrants Daniel and Elizabeth Scanlon in New York City. Soon after, the family moved to St. Louis, where she was educated with the Madams of the Sacred Heart. Sparse records give the notion that after her novitiate in 1898, she lived in the West and taught in Loretto schools. After her teaching days, she served as the infirmarian at Loretto Heights, where she died on January 11, 1931. Sister Margaret Augusta Ecker was graduated from Loretto School, Bisbee, Arizona in 1922 and entered Loretto that year at the age of 17. She was an effective teacher, but early in life, ill health forced her to retire from the classroom. She lived the last few years of her life at Loretto Heights, where she managed the college bookstore. She was found dead in her bedroom at Loretto Heights College on June 22, 1946. Sister Vivian Edelin was the first registrar of Loretto Heights College and served in that capacity for 25 years. Through her detailed reports and competent leadership, she spearheaded the accreditation of the college with the North Central Association and the Colorado State Department of Education for the granting of teacher certificates. Endowed with a fine intellect, she earned a master's degree from Colorado University and a doctorate from DePaul University in Chicago. Her chosen field of study was history, and she was a vibrant and inspiring professor of that subject and head of the department until her death. She was born in Litchfield, Kentucky, and studied with the Sisters of Loretto in Elizabethtown nearby. She joined the Sisters of Loretto and, completing her course of initial training, was sent to St. Mary's Academy, Denver. She taught there from 1896 until September 17, 1918, when the long-contemplated Loretto Heights College for Women opened, while World War I was grinding to a finish. She was an active member of the college community until she broke her hip in January 1947 and succumbed to pneumonia a few days later. Mother Eustacia Elder was born near the Loretto Mother House in Springfield, Kentucky, March 11, 1865. She attended the common schools except for her last 2 years, during which she was a pupil at Loretto Academy. In 1883, she entered the novitiate. She was an excellent upper-grade teacher and also served as superior in Colorado Springs and Montgomery, Alabama. She was president and superior of Loretto Heights College from 1925 until her death after a brief illness from cancer in August 1929. Pancratia Hall was in the process of construction at the time, a project she had planned and directed. During her administration, she worked with the college faculty for national accreditation, and she completed the installation of the chapel stained glass windows designed by Myers & Company, Munich, Germany. Sister Mary Agnes Flynn was the former Emily Flynn, who was born to William and Nora Hagen Flynn in Arbelia, Missouri on January 3, 1860. At the age of 25, she entered Loretto and spent her entire life in domestic duties, chiefly at Loretto Heights, where she lived from 1896 until her death, June 17, 1943. Sister Columba Gallivan was born in Marion County, Kentucky, of Irish-born parents, December 22, 1857. Following her graduation from Loretto Academy, she entered Loretto at the age of 20. Because of frail health, she was sent to Denver in 1882 and lived the remainder of her life in Colorado, teaching music either at St. Mary's or Loretto Heights, where she died November 25, 1913. Sister Leander Gargan was one of 2 daughters of Frances Gargan and Bridget Kelly, who entered the Sisters of Loretto. She was born in Canada November 2, 1857. At the age of 19, she made her vows as a Sister of Loretto on March 23, 1877. She taught music in numerous Loretto schools as well as serving as superior for several terms. Almost 20 of the last years of her life she lived at St. Mary's, where she died May 29, 1946. She was 89 years of age, the second in seniority at that time of all Sisters of Loretto, and senior member of the Loretto community in Colorado. Her younger sister Catherine was known in religion as Sister Evelyn, who also lived a long life, dying at the age of 85 at the Mother House. Sister Corona Griesbach was born in St. Louis, of German parents William and Marie Stickler Griesbach, on May 8, 1870. After profession of vows, she remained at the Mother House, serving in many domestic capacities, until 1908 when she went to Colorado for her health. There, she regained her strength and lived for almost 30 years, serving in many useful occupations at Pueblo and the Heights. She died in Denver, August 14, 1940. Sister Carmelita Hodap was of German ancestry, born of Valentine and Louisa Frecking Hodap in Louisville, July 26, 1870. She entered Loretto in 1895 after working 10 years as a store clerk. After her novitiate, she taught music and commercial subjects in several Loretto schools. She was named Superior of St. Francis School, Toronto, Ohio, in 1905. While there, her health failed and she was sent to Colorado in the hope that a change of climate would benefit her. The move was not helpful, for she died at Loretto Heights on April 26, 1909. Sister Rosalind Hutchins was born of a prominent Kentucky family in Daviess County on August 27, 1858. She entered Loretto from New Haven, Kentucky in 1876. She was an elementary and commercial teacher and was superior in many Loretto convents from 1902 to 1929. In 1931, she went to Loretto Heights, where she died 5 years later following a cancer operation. Sister Amy Hines was an art and elementary teacher for 30 years at St. Mary's Academy, Denver. Born in St. Louis of Irish immigrant parents John and Ellen Kelly Hines, she was educated in the public schools with 2 final years at Loretto Academy, Florence. At the age of 20, she entered the Sisters of Loretto and 2 years later was transferred to the schools of Colorado and finally to St. Mary's. Her teaching career came to an abrupt end with an illness of only 3 weeks. Her funeral was held in the Loretto Heights Chapel, where the celebrant paid this fitting tribute. In the 42 years of her religious life, Sister Amy has lived a life of joy, humor, and service. Sister Mary DeSales-Heinz, the aunt of Sister Amy Hines, was born in County Galway, Ireland, and came to St. Louis with her family as a small child, settling in St. Kevin's Parish, where the Sisters of Loretto conducted a school. Wishing to lead a life like her teachers, she entered the Loretto novitiate. In 1868, she accompanied Mother Pancratia Bonfis west on the Union Pacific Railroad to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and thence to Denver by stagecoach to the newly established St. Mary's. Her long teaching career was spent, however, mostly in the Loretto schools other than the Denver establishments. She taught both lower and upper branches and was named superior several times. In 1915, she returned to Denver and was assigned again to Loretto Heights, where she died 10 years later and was laid to rest next to her lifelong friend, Mother Pancratia. Sister Miriam Judd was a great classical scholar with a speaking knowledge also of Hebrew, German, French, and Italian. She was on the first faculty of Webster College in St. Louis, where she headed the classical department for 19 years, and ended her teaching career in the same capacity at Loretto Heights College. There, she died suddenly of a severe heart attack as the school year 1939 to 1940 began. She was born Edie Judd in Boonville, Kentucky, of Protestant parents, and was converted to Catholicism in her late teens while attending Loretto Academy at the mother house of the Sisters of Loretto. Soon after, she entered the novitiate. She was one of the pioneer sisters to receive a bachelor's degree from Catholic University in 1913. In due time, she also earned master's and doctoral degrees. Sister Flacella Keating was born March 7, 1873 in St. Paul, Kansas, of Irish parents Patrick and Marie Ryan Keating. She attended school at St. Anne's Osage Mission and entered the novitiate there in 1894. After the destructive fire at St. Anne's, she went with her companions to complete her novitiate at Loretto. After a few years in Santa Fe and Pueblo, she was sent to Loretto Heights in 1905, where she spent the next 35 years of her life taking care of the chaplain's home, dining room, and a succession of his pet collies, all Jack by name. She died March 23, 1940, after an operation for cancer. Her younger sister, Sister Patrick, followed her into religious life and survived her in death. Sister Lua Kelliher. There is little record of Ella Kelliher, who became Sister Lua, except that she was born in Ireland and that her first vows were pronounced in 1908. Suffering always from poor health, she was sent to Loretto Heights, where she died December 23, 1912, at the early age of 24. Sister Ludmila Lehreter was born in Bavaria, Germany, October 3, 1867. As a child, she came to the United States and was educated in the Brooklyn public schools. She entered the Loretto novitiate in 1888. Her first duties were teaching the primary grades in Loretto schools in the South. At the turn of the century, she was assigned to Pueblo and 3 years later to Loretto Heights, where she served chiefly as bookkeeper until her death, January 1, 1927. Sister Antoinette Logston was baptized Emily by her parents, James and Matilda Doherty of Kentucky. At the age of 23, she became a Loretto novice. Her religious life was spent in Colorado, chiefly in domestic occupations at Loretto Heights, where she died July 18, 1919. Sister Euphemia Malloy was born in Ireland in 1842 and was baptized Margaret. At the age of 38, she was received into the Sisters of Loretto in 1880. The first 15 years of her religious life, she was in charge of the kitchen in Florissant, Missouri. At Loretto Heights Academy, she served in many domestic duties, including that of purchasing agent. She died July 18, 1919, at Loretto Heights in the 39th year of her religious life. Sister Loretto McAuliffe was born in Ireland, County Limerick, in 1855. Making her novitiate in Santa Fe, she undertook domestic duties, first in the New Mexico convents and then at Fort Collins, Holy Family, St. Mary's, and Loretto Heights in Colorado. She died at the last named place on March 16, 1938. Sister Claudia McCauley. Anastasia McCauley, the daughter of Pius McCauley and Eleanor Bowling, was born in Raywick, Kentucky, March 10, 1852. 20 years later, she made her vows as a Sister of Loretto and then taught in Loretto schools in the Midwest until 1892, when she went to St. Mary's in Denver. 12 years later, she was no longer able to teach because of poor health. While resting in Colorado Springs, she died on June 8, 1904. She was survived by her two blood sisters who had also entered Loretto, Sisters Flora and Sidonia. Sister Flora McCauley was the older sister of Sister Claudia and was also born in Kentucky. In 1871, she made her religious profession and spent the next 2 decades of her life at Loretto Mother House and Cedar Grove Academy in Louisville. In 1892, she went to Loretto Heights and spent the rest of her years there in many domestic capacities, dying on May 18, 1926. Sister Frances DeSales-McGarry was the first of a long line of Loretto Heights College alumni to enter the Loretto Novitiate. She was born July 5, 1900, in Colorado Springs, where she was educated in the public schools through the 10th grade. She then went to Loretto Heights to complete her high school work and was one of the pioneer students in the newly organized Loretto Heights College. After 1 semester, she decided to enter the Loretto Sisterhood. Gifted with a fine intellect, she earned many academic degrees and certificates through the course of the years. She studied not only in American universities but also at those in Rome and Havana. In addition to classroom teaching, she served as dean both at Loretto Heights and Webster colleges. When she resigned her deanship at the latter, she spent the following 3 years at the Institute of Higher Religious Studies in Rome, and then returned to Loretto Heights as a professor of theology. She died suddenly from a heart attack on May 21, 1967. Sister Jovita Mills, who lived almost a half a century at the Heights, was born on September 7, 1846 in Meade County, Kentucky, of James and Sarah Durbin Mills. At the early age of 14, she entered the Loretto Order. Her long religious life was spent entirely in Colorado in a variety of domestic duties. She was first assigned to Pueblo and then Colorado Springs. In 1891, she had the privilege of being in the founding band of sisters assigned to the newly opened Loretto Heights. There she lived, loved by both sisters and students, continuously until March 30, 1940, a span of 49 years. When she viewed the snapshot taken on her 93rd birthday, she humorously quipped, "My nose was always too long." She died at the age of 94, suffering from a heart ailment. Sister Bartholomew Nooning was a member of the pioneer Loretto Heights community and the author of its earliest chronicles. In her diary, she recorded significant facts about the first building. The cost of construction, $165,572. The length and width of the building, 200 by 100 feet. And the dimensions of the tower, 165 feet high by 30 feet square. She also noted how for several successive springs, many fruit and shade trees were planted on the barren land, and that the tile flooring in the main corridor was not laid until 1905, when it took 2 weeks to complete the tedious project. She was born in Northampton, Massachusetts, December 3, 1849, of Irish and Scotch parents. She moved with her family to Illinois and attended boarding school conducted by the Sisters of Loretto in Edina, Missouri, where her vocation to religious life was nurtured. She received the religious habit August 15, 1867. She was a talented artist and taught almost continuously at Loretto Heights from its opening in 1891 until her death there January 29, 1915. She was laid to rest near Mother Pancratia in the Heights Cemetery. Sister Agnes Patricia O'Hare was born in Edgewater, Colorado, August 3, 1897, of James and Agnes O'Hare. Before entering the Sisters of Loretto in 1926, she spent many years as a telephone operator in Denver. Because of frail health, she was missioned to the West. She died following a serious kidney operation while she was stationed in Pueblo, Colorado, and was buried at the Heights. She was the niece of Father William Howlett, longtime chaplain of Loretto Mother House, and the author of the life of Father Charles Nix, the founder of the Sisters of Loretto. Sister Frances O'Leary was a gifted teacher and talented writer of prose and poetry. She was a native of Cleveland, Tennessee, where she was born May 3, 1854. In 1883, she was received into Loretto and spent the first 15 years of her religious life at the Mother House Academy, teaching the upper grades. In 1893, she was assigned the same work at the new Loretto Heights and was the first sister to die and be buried there. Her death occurred suddenly November 5, 1898, from heart failure. In the Loretto magazine of January 1899, one of her pupils, Catherine Mullen, wrote a long eulogy praising her as a splendid teacher and beloved friend. Sister Teresa Augusta Owings, a gifted artist, was born in Alton, Illinois, February 12, 1861, of David and Mary Wonderling Owings, both natives of Emmitsburg, Maryland. When she was 29, she was received as a novice at Loretto, and after profession was sent to Florence to study art under Sister Mary Martin Camp, described as the artist of the society at the time. After her apprenticeship there, she returned to Loretto to teach until failing health caused superiors to send her to Denver in 1898. She died from lung disease in the spring of that school year at Loretto Heights on April 20, 1899. Sister Mary Norbert Parsoneau was a talented art teacher as well as a prolific painter of portraits. She was born August 30, 1891, in Waterton, New York, of French-Canadian parents. After her father's early death, her mother moved with her children to Fort Collins, Colorado. Sister Norbert entered the Loretto Society at the age of 17 and taught primary grades for many years in Sterling, Illinois. In 1927, while teaching at St. Vincent's in Denver, she began her studies in art at Denver University. In 1933, after receiving her degree, she was assigned to head the art department at Loretto Heights College, a post she held until her sudden death on November 25, 1959, when she was found dead in her bed. During her tenure as art department head, she had the joy of seeing the department develop and a new studio erected on the campus. Although she had painted many portraits of important persons, one of her favorites was that of nationally known theater magnate Charles Squidus. Sister Cecile Redden was an alumna of the Loretto Heights Academy and later a teacher and dean of the college. Mary Redden was born May 22, 1902, in Denver, of John Redden, a prominent Denver lawyer, and his wife, Mary Ford Redden. She attended Loretto Heights Academy and spent her collegiate years at Webster College in St. Louis, from which she graduated in 1924. The following October, she entered the Loretto novitiate. Her early teaching days were chiefly at Loretto Academy, El Paso. After graduate studies, she was assigned to the Heights to teach philosophy. In 1954, she was appointed Dean of Students, and in 1959, Academic Dean. 8 years later, during registration week, she discovered cancer, which caused her to resign her deanship, and which ultimately brought about her death June 16, 1968. Sister Luisa Romero was born in Santa Fe, 1846. After studying at Our Lady of Light Academy, she entered the novitiate in Santa Fe. It is recorded that in October, on her 18th birthday, she left for Denver, where she arrived 2 months later after an arduous ox cart journey. She spent her long religious life chiefly at St. Mary's, engaged in domestic work. She often recalled how in the early days there she would feed the Indians who came to the convent for food. She died at St. Mary's in 1928. After the Requiem Mass at the cathedral, she was taken to the Heights for burial. Sister Constantia Schaub was the first full-time librarian at Loretto Heights College and likewise one of the few sisters to serve as United States Postmistress at the campus post office. She was born in St. Louis, August 7, 1882, and baptized Julia in St. Michael's Parish, where she was also educated by the Sisters of Loretto. At the age of 20, she entered the Loretto Society. Except for 2 years in Greeley, she spent her entire religious life at Loretto Heights. She died of a heart attack October 5, 1933. Sister Theotine Thomas was one of 3 sisters who became Sisters of Loretto. She was born March 13, 1904, and was educated at Bethlehem, Kentucky. She entered the novitiate at an early age and became an excellent primary teacher. While teaching at Moberly, Missouri, she contracted tuberculosis and was immediately sent west in 1936. She died in a Denver sanatorium in 1938 and was buried at the Heights. Her sisters in religion were Sisters Leonida and Delphine Marie. Sister Eutropia Tulin was born in Ireland in 1840 of Patrick Tulin and Anne Casey Tulin. When and how she became acquainted with the Sisters of Loretto is not known. After her religious profession, she was sent to New Mexico, where she worked among the Indians. In 1870, she was sent to St. Mary's in Denver, and in 1898 to Loretto Heights, where she served in the bakery, laundry, and infirmary. She died in 1910, and it was recorded by a contemporary that her cheerfulness, obliging disposition, household ability, and solid piety made her a blessing in every house in which she lived. Sister Agatha Wall was born in Ireland, January 20, 1831, of staunch Catholics John Wall and Ellen Fitzpatrick Wall. No record tells of her coming to America, except that she entered the Loretto novitiate in 1854. After a few years of service in Kentucky, she went west to the new academy in Santa Fe, and in 1864 made the pioneer journey of 6 days from there to Denver to open St. Mary's Academy. She was one of the sisters who assisted Mother Pancratia in choosing the site for Loretto Heights and was a member of the pioneer community when the new school was opened in southwest Denver in 1891. She spent her religious life caring for the convent wardrobe and refectory. She died at Loretto Heights on July 9, 1907. Sister Frances Marie Walsh was an outstanding president of Loretto Heights College for 18 years, 1946 through 1964. She was respected for her strong, just, and effective leadership, not only within the college, but also by the civic, ecclesiastical, and financial communities. Her record of accomplishments includes the erection of 6 major college buildings, the advancement of the faculty both in quality and quantity, and the triple growth of the college enrollment. When she resigned the presidency, she retired to the newly erected Loretto Retirement Center in Littleton, where she remained active in public relations concerns until she suffered a massive stroke in September 1968 and died the same day at the age of 75. She was born in the last decade of the 19th century to the family of Frank P. Walsh, an eminent labor lawyer, and his Southern wife, Catherine O'Flaherty. Following her studies at Loretto Academy in her native city of Kansas City and a short time at Manhattanville, she joined her sister Catherine in entering the Loretto novitiate. She taught first at Nix Hall and Webster College in St. Louis before coming to Loretto Heights in 1939. She served as convent supervisor for 6 years prior to her inauguration as president. In 1966, she was given the Colorado Women of Achievement Award, when she was aptly described by the conferring official, distinguished educator, builder, and dedicated servant of God. Sister Olivet McLean was named Aloysia at her birth in 1868. She became a Sister of Loretto December 8, 1886, at the age of 18. From the Mother House Novitiate in Kentucky, she was sent to St. Mary's in Denver for health reasons. Sister Olivet pronounced both her first and final vows just 2 weeks before her death, November 1, 1888. She died November 16, 1888, and was first buried at Mount Calvary. Sister Ignatius James, born in 1853, was named Isabella at birth. She was one of the first 3 sisters from Santa Fe to come to Denver by mail coach at the request of Father Matchbuff, arriving June 25, 1864. And starting the Loretto's first school at 15th in California in the White House formerly owned by George Clayton. Sister Ignatia served 19 and a half years at St. Mary's, dying January 13, 1884, in the 12th year of her religious life. She was first buried at Mount Calvary in East Denver. Sister Joachim Houlihan was named Honora at birth in 1852. She received the habit at age 18. She died at St. Mary's March 15, 1886, in the 16th year of her religious life. Sister Joachim was one of the 10 sisters first buried at Mount Calvary. Sister Nix O'Neal, born in 1846, was named Ellen at birth. At age 20, she was received into the Sisters of Loretto and was many years superior at Loretto Academy in Conejos, Colorado. Due to failing health, she came to St. Mary's in Denver in 1889. She died October 8, 1889, in the 23rd year of her religious life. The St. Mary's School publication described her as modest, patient, humble, and saintly. Sister Nix is one of the 10 first buried in Denver's first cemetery, Mount Calvary. Sister Victorine Renshaw was born in 1851 and named Emily at baptism. She became a Sister of Loretto at age 16. On March 19, 1888, Sister Victorine accompanied Sister Pancratia and 2 other sisters in a sleigh to Sheridan Hill in southwest Denver, almost 7 miles from St. Mary's. Sister Victorine named the site Loretto Heights. She died at St. Mary's just 7 months before Loretto Heights Academy opened. In the 24th year of her religious life, she died March 23, 1891. Sister Augustina David Chavez, born in 1842, was named Teresa at birth. At age 18, she was received as a Sister of Loretto March 30, 1860. She died at St. Mary's in the 11th year of her religious life, June 15, 1870, and was first buried at Mount Calvary. Sister Jerome Murphy was named Anne at her birth in 1824. She joined Loretto at age 25, November 8, 1859. She died at St. Mary's June 3, 1885, in the 26th year of her religious life. Sister Jerome was one of the 10 sisters buried at Mount Calvary. Sister Peter Joseph Benavides was named Petra at her birth in 1844. She entered Loretto at age 24 on August 15, 1868. She died at St. Mary's July 2, 1872, in the 4th year of her religious life, pronouncing her final vows just 3 days before her death. She was first buried at Mount Calvary. Sister Josephina Ortiz was the first to be buried in the Loretto Heights Cemetery. Baptized Ramona, she was born in 1861 and joined the Sisters of Loretto in 1878 at the age of 17. She died February 12, 1896. Sister Davina Burns was born in 1854, was received into the Sisters of Loretto December 8, 1875, at the age of 21. She died August 16, 1889, at St. Mary's Academy. A newspaper obituary quoted the eulogist Father Malone, who spoke of the strict purity of her life, her gentleness, and her unswerving devotion to duty. Quoting from the obituary, "Probably no sister in Colorado was more sincerely or more universally beloved than the late Sister Davina. She was a model religious, and her death was in harmony with the peace and beauty of her life. Sister Davina was first buried at Mount Calvary." Sister Benigna Brady was named Rose at birth in 1847. She entered Loretto at age 26 on August 15, 1873. She died in the 18th year of her religious life at St. Mary's Academy on November 17, 1890. Sister Benigna was first buried at Mount Calvary and moved to the Loretto Heights Cemetery with 9 other sisters in 1912.